Alright, so get your Chromebooks out. There are a couple things that I want to go over with you before we dive into more resume stuff. We were going to cover a lot of things today, but I think I'm going to save that for tomorrow because I want to give you guys a little bit more time with resumes. I think I saw that first hour we needed a little bit more time. And do we need more time with resumes a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so head nods. Okay, so that's what I thought. I'm going to shut this real quick.
Yes.
Because I have some new resources for you that I want to go over really quick. They can be found in week 9. And they are in the resume examples folder. The first one that I want to talk about is the verbs for resumes. So we watched a video the other day that talked about using strong vocabulary in your resumes. Not just, let's say for example, I'm trying to write my resume. I want to avoid any words that are not powerful, as we like to call them. So I would probably avoid, if I want to tell people that I created lesson plans, I probably wouldn't say made lesson plans. Made isn't a very strong, one of those strong words, power words. So I want to try to find other verbs that would fit in there that make that sentence a little bit more powerful. So if you would, I'm going to put this up here, but you also have the link to this. As you go through, you can also open up your resume because I want you to kind of match your previous job experience or volunteer experience to one of these headings that we'll talk about. So the first one is you increase something positive. Let's see, where's my mouse? You reduce something negative. You communicated with colleagues and customers. So if you've ever worked a retail job or a customer service job.
Fast food jobs.
Yep. I'm sure Morgan, you are at Big B, correct? So this would be your section. If you've ever done any sort of communicating as a team, Trent, I know you worked in, what did you do? Restaurant, correct?
Yes.
So this could be your section. So rather than saying under the description of your experience, rather than saying talked with customers, you could say something along the lines of convey information to customers. Doesn't that sound a lot better than just talking to customers? So it's just power words that kind of beef up our resume a little bit. So the next section, manage projects or people. So instead of just saying manage, you can say supervise, facilitate, guide, govern, command. Those are pretty strong. Coordinate, superintend, conduct. You took initiative. So if you are a go-getter, you can say that you carried out certain skills or that you delivered, you handled. Something that just makes it sound a little bit stronger. If you led people, you could say that you enlightened them, mobilized them, coached them. You organized something. Let's say you are part of student council and you worked the blood drive and you were one of the people that led that activity. You could say that you allocated it, you organized it, you compiled it. What's that? Arranged. Yep. Brought people together. Achieved something incredible. So not only under the when you're describing what you have done at a job, you also want to highlight things that you accomplished. So you could say you produced something, established, overcame something, produced, realized. So So I want you to have this, and I kind of want you to match up the experience that you've had with one of these sections. So that way you can look at your resume, look at the verbs that you use, and say, okay, is this a powerful enough verb? Does this really tell the employer what I'm capable of? So use this list to your benefit. Go through. Can you change any of the verbs to make them sound a little bit more powerful? So that is for you to have. And then the second resource that I want you to look at is double checking your resume. So before you send your resume out into the workforce, what should you probably do before you send it out?
Proofread it.
Proofread. Check for any spelling errors.
Back it up.
What's that?
Back it up.
What does that mean?
Like make multiple copies.
Oh, yes,
So
yes,
you
yes.
don't lose it.
Yes. So if you are typing it on something and you're creating your resume, save it. Save it to a drive so that you have extra copies of it, because you do not want to redo it. You do not want to retype it. It's a lot of work. So spell check, making sure it's saved. What else? What to look for before you send it out into the world? Any ideas?
Spell check.
Yeah, spell check. Use those tools.
Find a job to send it to.
Okay, that's fair. But things to do to the actual resume before you send it out.
Make sure your name.
Your contact info. Let's say you accidentally smashed your phone out in the parking lot and had to get a new phone number. I don't know if they usually just give you a new phone, but let's say you had to change your phone number.
I feel like your memory card was destroyed.
Right. Something weird technological like that. If your email got hacked and you had to create a new email
You got pissed off at your phone and threw it at the wall.
and it broke and you couldn't, yes.
Yeah.
But let's say you are now living with your grandma. Within the past year that changed. So your address might have changed. So before you send it out, because over the years you're gonna have to keep updating your resume. And at this point, from the time that I was your guys' age to right now, I've had to change my resume 5 or 6 times. So you're gonna constantly be updating it, but just make sure your contact info is also updated. So they know exactly where to find you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What else?
But
Matt, you had your hand raised earlier.
I was gonna suggest laminating it.
Laminating, if you're gonna turn in a paper copy of it. So if a job wants you to turn in an actual paper copy of your resume, that might be a good idea.
At that point in time, though, they may look at you and be like, yeah, no. If you turn in a laminated copy. So, careful on who you do that to.
Right.
That'd be like going up to somebody and being like, oh, I'm too popular for this. Maybe for some people that would go over well, but not very
Laminated?
likely.
they said a hard copy.
But I
They
feel
did
like
say
if you,
the
as
same.
long as you have multiple hard copies, I think you're okay. What else should we double check? We have spelling, contact info, making sure you have multiple copies. References? References, what about them?
Make sure you have 3.
Make sure you have all 3 references,
Make sure
that
you
they
got the
are
references.
reliable.
Make sure that you have the permission of the people.
Yes, 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 yes. Make sure you have their permission. So if one day I get a call from a prospective employer of one of y'all, and they say, how was Morgan as a student? I'm like, oh, I'm caught off guard, right? Because she didn't tell me that she was going to put me on her list of people for a reference. So if you're going to put someone on your resume as a reference, make sure you have double checked with them and let them know that, hey, I would probably ask them first. I wouldn't just say, hey, you're on my list of references.
Can I use
Be
you as a
prepared. You're
reference?
gonna get a phone call within the next 3 days. So I would ask them first. You always want to ask them.
Can I
That's
use
okay.
you as a reference?
Yes, exactly. So make sure your references are up to date. Make sure you have all their info. If you work with them at a company and don't know their personal Personal, let's say, address. I would use the address of the business that you worked with them. Yes.
This sounds stupid, but very important part of the process. Double check to make sure you actually put the resume with everything that you need.
Oh, so like don't leave it out?
It would be very, very unfortunate to get done. You turn in your application and then you go back inside your house and you're like, well, you're not supposed to be here.
Right, yes, that's super important because even more so now, which is, it's kind of nice when you turn in your application online, it might not let you actually turn in the application if a resume is not attached to it. But yes, always make sure. Anything else? What are we missing?
What are we missing?
I don't know, what are we missing? You resume experts. Jaden?
Make sure it's organized.
Yes! Make sure you don't have all these wacky fonts. If you're gonna use Times New Roman, stick with Times New Roman. Don't use Times New Roman, then use some curly Q font and then the wingding font. Don't do
That's
it.
a good one.
What's the wing name?
Those little, it's just the name of
Symbols.
a font that has just symbols. There's no actual letters.
It used to be
I don't know,
programming
maybe I'm just aging myself because that was a font that I used to have. Anyways,
I don't know.
yes, make sure it's organized. If it looks cluttered to you, imagine the person reading it.
It would be terrible for them.
I don't even know what to look at. So make sure it's organized. Make
Don't
sure
start
it's
it in
consistent.
Don't start it in English and end it in Spanish.
Right. Someone put a different
That slowly translates halfway.
language on their resume first hour. Don't do that. Don't do it.
So can't put
But yes, organization is huge. So when you guys are making your first drafts of your resumes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna print it out and I'm gonna mark it up like crazy if it needs it. A lot of the edits that I saw that I made for people in first hour were a lot of formatting changes that needed to be made. So before you say, okay, Ms. Snyder, you can check it, double check. Is everything consistent? Are all the headings bold? Is the name of places bold? Please bold capitalize Shepherd High School because it is the name. So, this is just a short little list, but I'm pretty sure we might have covered all of them. First one, contact. Oh yes, perfect, beautiful. Verb tense. That's something that we forgot. If you worked at a job in the past, you created lesson plans. So make sure if it's in the past, you use the past tense verb. Okay? Yes, Scott.
Double check to make sure it's going to the right place.
Yeah, that's true.
And make sure that it's actually going to go to the place at all. Especially if you're doing
It's
stuff with like mail, like physical mail,
Mhm.
make sure you
Snail mail.
got everything that you need.
Right. Spelling, grammar, yes. Punctuation, yes. Formatting, yes. So, these are all the things that we need to be aware of before we send our resume out into the workplace. So, any questions on any of this? Both of those links are right in Schoology. If you think you are done, double check. Do you have everything? Did you spell everything correctly? If so, if you double checked, you can share it with me or just submit the assignment and I'll print it out and we can go over it. A-okay? Cool. Is that a question?
Unrelated.
Okay. Alright. You can go ahead and get started.